evening. Welcome to the July 5th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. We have a short agenda tonight, continuation of a public hearing for special permit application at 153 Turnpike Road, and a decision. We have to appoint some planning board members to Open Space Committee, Sustainable Westborough Committee, and Design Review Board, and we have a discussion on the master plan implementation. Start with the continuation of the public hearing. And Suzette, I'm sorry, if you could come up and just restate your name, we'll.
Sure.
You actually don't even need to come up if you're comfortable there.
Sure.
Just
Suzette,
speak loud so people can hear.
Suzette Spitzer.
Okay. You've had a chance to review the draft?
I did.
Okay. It's a public hearing. Do we have any more? I know that I had a chance to review. I actually watched the meeting and signed a Mullen waiver. John, did you get a chance to do that as well?
Yes, I was here.
So, under law, we can miss one meeting as long as we review the minutes and still vote. Full board to vote. And what else do we need to cover on this? Is there any other outstanding issues on this?
I don't see anyone else from the public here for comment, so I don't assume that you're going to have any more public comment on the application itself. If there aren't any other questions from the board and none from Suzette, then I would say we should go through the decision, the draft decision.
Hearing open during that, or
Yes, let's keep the hearing open.
why don't you take us through the draft decision? You've had a chance to review it. Did you have any questions on it? Okay, go ahead and take us through it.
Okay, so you have a proposed decision dated July 5, that's today, for 153 Turnpike Road that would allow a retail and dog training school use in the existing building to occupy approximately 5,128 square feet of the existing space. And I note that that space was actually formerly a pet retail facility, a pet retail use in the past, so this will not be a new use in that location. The first two pages are a description of the submittal and the items that were submitted, a little description of what's intended by the applicant. There's at the middle of page 2, we have a description of the proposed use. I note that there'll be a gym, there'll be restrooms, there'll be a break room and a kitchenette for staff, that there'll be small spaces for office and storage, and that dogs are not maintained on the site without their owners. No pets are kept overnight. It's important that the board make a finding in the case of all special permits, and that's at the bottom of page 2. It says, the board acting under the Westborough zoning bylaws and Massachusetts general law, chapter 48, section 9, talks about the hearings that we held, the materials that we received, and then over on page 3, third paragraph, says under section 1330 of the zoning bylaws, a special permit shall be granted unless because of conditions peculiar to the particular case but not generally true of similar permitted uses on other sites in the same district. It appears that nuisance hazard or congestion will be created, or for other reasons there'll be substantial harm to the neighborhood or derogation from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. In making its decision, the board found no evidence of conditions peculiar to this case that would not be true of similar uses on other sites in the same district. So therefore, the special permit allows the use of approximately 5,128 square feet of the existing building at 153 Turnpike Road for a pet retail store and dog training school as described in the project application and as provided in the Westborough zoning bylaws. The conditions of approval begin at the bottom of page 3. Number 1, dogs and their owners shall enter through the building's front entrance only. There shall be no animal access from the rear of the building. The applicant shall provide one or more trash receptacles designed for animal waste along the sidewalk at the front of the building near the entrance. That should say dog training. I will change that to dog training.
What was the change, Jim?
I had animal hospital, but it's not a hospital. I changed that to dog training. The last two words on number 2.
On the conditions.
the top of page 4, condition 3, activities associated with training classes, walking or exercising of dogs exterior to the building shall be prohibited. Any signage associated with the new use shall conform to the requirements of the Westborough zoning bylaws. The applicant shall install appropriate building materials to soundproof the common walls shared with adjoining commercial uses to reduce animal sound from infiltrating adjoining commercial spaces. And then lastly, prior to the final certificate of occupancy, all plans approved through a special permit with all comments from town departments shall be verified through as-built plans. That's typical from the building department. As-built plans shall be approved to the building department or other appropriate departments to verify conformance with approved plans and permits. The building commissioner may withhold occupancy should any of these be found to be deficient. Item 7 just lists the letters that we received from town departments. Item 8 notes that we received a letter from the abutter, Mrs. Dada, who appeared at the last public hearing. Items 9 and 10 are boilerplate. They deal with modifications to the permit and non-performance.
Questions or comments from the board?
The only thing is, I remember specifically last week that the budding neighbor, her questions were all answered. I'd just like to make the public aware of that any concerns that were raised were taken care of at that meeting by answers to her questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think it's just important to make sure the space remains tidy, no dog poop. I know but I just make sure that we don't hear about that. That's all.
Yeah, that was my question. Just what if customers don't pick up after their dogs? What are we going to do? What are you going to do about that if customers don't pick after their dogs out in the yard there?
Are you going to police it every couple of hours or something just to double check and make sure that there's no refuse left there?
I'd probably have staff go out and do that, yeah. And then we would just reinforce with the customers that they need to be responsible for doing it.
I'd like to think anybody responsible enough to bring but
Good
I
luck.
realize sometimes, I know sometimes you forget to bring a bag, but I think she's providing a sanitary station with complimentary waste bags for to bring. It's unlikely that we're going to have a substantial issue with that, but if you do, and address it with the applicant.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I just had one more about item 5, soundproofing the common walls. Does that also include the ceiling?
Yeah, it's primarily the ceiling that we're most concerned about in that particular building right now because we believe the interior walls are already soundproof, but we're going to check it.
Okay. That was just my concern with 4 golf. I think they're right above you guys. The golf?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly, yep.
All right. That's it.
What else? So anything from you, Jim?
No, nothing further.
Anything else from the public? Here. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on special permit 2022-1.
Second.
Motion. All those in favor of closing the hearing? That's 5-0. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that the planning board approve the special permit application for Suzette Spitzer for a Zoom room at 153 Turnpike Road dated July 5th, 2022, with the revisions made at this evening's meeting.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? And that's 5-0 as well. Welcome to town.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. And then I get it digitally, is that what happens next?
You'll get a written decision. We have to clerk it tomorrow. This week we'll clerk it. And it has to wait 20 days, and then you can file for your building permit. My advice is file for the building permit now, because it'll take, excuse me, a week or two to get through that process. They can be doing that while the appeal period is expiring.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It was nice meeting all of you.
All right,
Good luck.
Thank you.
thanks, good luck.
Thank you.
We're about
Bye,
to get a
Stuart.
new puppy, so.
I think we should take care of the appointments next. We have 3 appointments that the planning board is responsible for filling. We have the Open Space Preservation Committee, we have the Sustainable Westborough Committee, and we have the Design Review Board. I guess I'll take all of them. I'll stay on the Open Space Preservation Committee. I enjoy that. Do we have any volunteers for Sustainable Westborough? Coming up, so if you're interested.
I'll stay on the design review. That's fine.
Yeah, I know you guys.
I'm loaded.
Can I just ask Jim a question, maybe he would know, or Kristen? So I'm also on the Open Space Committee, but I'm assuming as an at-large member. So if I were to do the planning board rep, would I need to resign that seat for the planning board position, or does it not matter?
Gee, I
And
don't
should we
know.
have 2 planning board members on the Open Space Committee?
I guess you'd have to look at whatever the town charter says when it created this group, the Sustainable Westborough Committee.
I would guess that if he becomes a planning board member, then they want to open the other seat. So in other words, if
I would
you're on.
think so.
Yeah, if you're on as an open seat, I would guess if you become the planning board member, then that open seat will become vacant.
Well, I do think he could fill the open seat. We would have to designate him as our representative
Right,
in place of me.
right. So if Mark didn't want to do it, I'm already on it, I'm happy to do it through, as a planning board rep or as an at-large?
Yeah, so if we were to work it out where John was the planning board open space rep, and I didn't have to do that, then I could probably take on Sustainable West.
That sounds like a
vice
very
versa.
good way to do
So
it.
then, if that's the case, procedurally, you should vote to appoint him your planning board rep.
Right.
And then we would just vote to appoint you the Sustainable Westborough.
I mean, it's one or the other. I don't think I can do both,
Okay.
but I'm
Well,
fine being one or the other.
I would prefer that you take Sustainable Westborough.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
So
I
why
think
don't
that's a
you-
good arrangement.
Why don't you submit your resignation?
Sure.
And, or we can appoint John to Sustainable West.
We could do that now and get that,
That's what-
yeah, we could do that now
We can
and,
do all of that.
right now and get it over with.
All right, so I'll make a motion to appoint Hazel Nurse to the Design Review Board.
I second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, I do notice that we have to appoint everybody,
Yeah,
it looks like, not just.
yeah, it's
me.
a separate motion at the bottom.
Yeah.
Three separate votes.
Oh, okay.
So were you in favor, Hazel,
But
of your appointment to Design Review?
I raised my hand.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. It's 5-0.
Do we have to read these other names?
What?
Do we have to read the other names on this?
Well, that was my question. Can we appoint everybody by one motion?
Sure, as long as there's no discussion. If you chose to not reappoint somebody, you'd have to leave that person's name off the motion.
Right.
I'm sorry, guys, I
Yeah.
forgot about that. So-
I would move that we appoint Michael Halley, Hazel Nurse, Cynthia Dubois, Dan Martin, Christian Hendrick, and Allison Gianmarco to the Design Review Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is 5-0. So I will make a motion to appoint John Gelsich to the Sustainable West.
Second.
Any discussion?
How many meetings a month or year, quarter? I hope you're joking.
It's every other day.
I honestly don't know the answer.
Okay.
I think we do these yearly, don't we? And we do design review
Pete
yearly.
Dunbeck is the chair. I can give you his email and you can reach out
Actually,
to him.
met with Pete like 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna
Okay.
reach out to him.
Yeah, reach out to him.
Yeah,
Good to know.
I believe it's once a month.
When do they meet? What day, generally?
Don't know.
I probably should have asked this to begin with. I want to make sure I have the availability.
All right, well, if it becomes. Any further discussion of the motion? All those in favor, that is 5-0, in favor of John Gelsich.
I move that the planning board appoint Mark Silverbird to be the board's representative to the Open Space Preservation Committee.
Second?
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor? Why don't we see, do we have minutes, Chris? Okay.
No, we did them last month.
All right, so the last item on the agenda is the Master Plan Implementation Committee. And we had received a email from Donnie Goris Kolb at VHB. Had a suggested mission statement. Some suggestions for committee makeup. Really kind of left it up to us. There were like 3 different groups. First of all, I think the mission statement, my feeling is we should put that out there when we call for interested members. We should be clear that that's finalize their mission statement. Fine, but
I think it needs to be tightened up from looking at it myself, so I would guess that when the new committee looks at it, it may be made a little tighter and a little more straightforward than the way it is. So I think it's a great idea to leave it up to the committee to go ahead and revise it as they wish.
I think it's good to put out there with the call for parties because it'll be. Should be room. Once they understand.
Mark, the one question I have is that if we put the mission statement out, the first question that people are going to ask is, how much time is this going to take? Is it going to meet once a month? Is it going to meet? Because I think that's going to be a prime consideration for most people. So and the question is, can we put something in when we put out this information as to what the proposed type of meeting schedule might be?
Yeah, so my feeling is it's going to have to be at least once a month, if not more often in the beginning. But as all rolling on some initiatives, and I'm hoping it won't quite as often. Jim, you've been through this. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think Donnie's statement, I don't know if anybody printed the email, I can read it to you. I have it in front of me here. But I think you should add something at the end that it is anticipated that the implementation committee will have monthly meetings for the first year of the process. And then after that, you may decide it's every other month or something like that. But I'm happy to read the paragraph he proposed again, just to refresh everyone's memory. How about that?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Donnie Kowarsko proposed this back June 15th. It says the Westborough Master Plan Implementation Committee is charged with keeping the town excited by and engaged in the 2021 master plan. It shall advance the master plan's visions and goals developed in collaboration with the larger Westborough community. To this end, it shall work with the town's various departments, boards, and committees, along with supporting partner organizations, to prioritize and plan for the execution of the master plan's recommended actions, whether policy, program, operational improvement, or capital project. It shall also be responsible for tracking and reporting implementation progress to the Select Board, the Planning Board, and the community at large, as well as for monitoring this process and progress for improvement opportunities. Pretty broad general, but I think it explains. He says it's charged with the responsibility of keeping the town excited and engaged in the master plan. So I think that covers the enthusiasm part, excited, right, and engaged, which is the work.
Yeah, I honestly think it's got to be twice a month, I would think, to start. If we were doing it once a month, I don't think the master plan would be the 1 to 5 target will be just right, we'll blow by that target, you know what I mean? We'll never get anything done, and it's got to be multiple times a month, I feel, to start, get the ball going, and I think we do need to put it in the letter out to the community so people don't get overwhelmed and just shut down and don't follow up on their commitment.
What about twice a month for the first quarter? I mean, I was thinking twice a month, maybe till the end of the year, and then they can make a decision as to whether they want to continue with twice a month or whether they now feel they can go back to once a month. But I agree with Peter. I think at the beginning they're going to have to meet a couple of times a month in order to begin to formulate what it is they really want to do and how they're going to do it. And that way it will take more than one meeting, and if we spaced it out a month apart, it's going to take forever.
Yeah, so why don't we set the expectation of twice
Yeah.
a month, and then if less often, they could.
Yeah, and the subcommittees within that committee might break off and meet, other times. It's you'll get the whole group together at one point, and then people will be assigned projects or delegated items to take care of, and then those subgroups, I'm sure, you would probably meet as well. But
I'm not familiar with how VHB is setting up this implementation committee. Is it going to be?
Well, we're setting.
So we're setting up, but I guess they're giving the roadmap, right?
Well, yeah, and the roadmap.
So my point is a twice a month meeting necessary if a lot of the work is going to be done in the subcommittee? And then if the work is going to be done in the subcommittee, are they going to be presenting the progress twice a month? Or is one time a month for the main group, and then say the expectation is 1 or 2 subcommittee meetings a month in addition to that one? I mean, how is it going to be set up? Is that how
that's a good question, because depending on the makeup of the committee and the membership numbers, right? These quote-unquote subcommittees could just be working groups. They don't always have to be posted. Forum of the main subcommittee. Let's say you had a membership of, I'd like to keep it like 11 to 15. But if you had a working group of
5 or 6, yeah.
then you wouldn't necessarily have to have a posted meeting. That might be easier for people.
I'm just trying to give the people who are willing to volunteer the big picture of, you're going to commit to this many meetings a month, whether they're the main implementation group meetings or the subcommittee group meetings. And if you're going to meet twice a month with the main implementation group, and then how many times with the subcommittee or the working group, then I think that needs to be known. Because if they think they're only going to do 2 meetings a month, but it's really 2 whole implementation group meetings, and then also 2 subcommittee meetings in that same month, that's really 4 meetings. And people might not know that that's what they're getting into.
But the first couple of months, I think they're going to have to meet a couple of times. I mean, in other words, just for formation purposes.
Right.
So, I don't know, maybe you could phrase it that for the first 3 months until they, I mean, it's going to take them 2 or 3 months to get the subcommittees set up and actually working and with direction. So maybe it'd be 2 meetings for the advisory, for the entire committee for the first 3 months, and then once a month for the advisory committee meeting, and then subcommittees will be meeting at their own schedule during the preceding month.
Maybe leave it vague and say, 3 to 4 meetings a month,
Yeah,
split
I think
between.
It could almost be 2 to 3, because
3 to 4 will really scare people.
It will, yeah, that's true.
I think it could, so if you think about it, Hazel had a good point. During the first 2 to 3 months, you're not going to have a lot of subcommittee meetings. The committee is just going to be getting their feet wet, working with VHB, process, assigning subcommittee tasks. And then once the subcommittees actually get up and formed, they might meet more often, but the main committee might be able to meet less.
Right, I'm trying to get the total number of meetings out there.
Well, it's
it might
kind
be 2 to
of,
3.
yeah, it's got to be 2 to 3, but also, John, it's going to, each subcommittee could have to meet multiple times because an issue is, or they're trying to tackle a project, so then they'll set up more meetings. But, I would think 2 to 3 that's protocol. But I also think if we can set up a good system of actually tracking what each subcommittee is doing, that people can be updated on the go. So a good place to centralize all the data. Therefore, you can get rid of those major meetings after that's all collected and,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say get rid of, but you can certainly reduce those down to once.
For sure.
It could even be once every 3 months.
Yeah, it could be once a quarter.
Yeah. But we have definitely have
But I
to.
do think the subcommittees will be meeting more often once.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just I thought we were trying to put together this letter. And I'm just trying to
Exactly,
give,
And we have a little bit of guesswork, but I think we
Right.
should put it out there at 2 to 3.
I think if you write something, I wrote down, it is anticipated that the committee will meet twice a month for the first quarter and then evaluate its meeting schedule going forward, so that they know that they're going to meet at least a couple times a month. And then after the first couple months, they may decide that, like I think Hazel suggested, that they only have 1 committee meeting, but they need to have subcommittee meetings. So it's impossible to know. We could talk all night how many meetings they're going to need in the first few months.
I like the language.
Yeah,
It's anticipated.
Right.
So it's not
Yeah.
promised. It's-
exactly. No, that makes perfect sense, I think, probably.
I think
Yeah.
evaluating after the first.
Mm.
Yeah, generally, I mean, you're probably going to keep this committee in place for at least 2 years. The last time that we did this, the committee was much smaller. We had the planning board and about 4 to 5 at-large members, and that was it. And we only kept the committee together for about 2 years. And then the planning board basically took it over from there. You may do that, or you may keep it in place for 5 years, who knows?
Yeah, and I liked the fact that there be flexibility. I mean, the thing is, there may be some committees that will need to meet together less than other committees. So it's, giving them the flexibility to make the decision as to how often they wish to meet is a much better way to go, because they can make their own decisions on that. And also, the first couple of months, they're going to have to make a decision on what subcommittees they want, who's going to be in charge of which subcommittee. So really, the organization is going to take, some months to get organized, particularly since it's now summer. And we all know that a lot of people are away, and, hopefully we can get
Well,
something
that's the other thing.
organized
If you're
by
looking for letters of
August.
interest
Yeah,
from people, you probably need to give them longer than normal because of vacations. September 1 or something like that.
All right, so are we comfortable with the language that Jim suggested? 3 months.
Yeah, and they may evaluate sooner than that. They may say at the end of the second month, we really need to roll up our sleeves and meet 3 times a month or 4 times a month, whatever.
Okay. I mean, I'm good putting it out there like that, I don't.
Right, and I think that the important thing for us as a board to look at is if we think there are some particular people that in town that would be in addition to this master plan committee that, you know, we ought to talk to people and talk this up. So that I think it is important that we take kind of a leadership role in that. If you see someone that you think might be a good addition to this committee, at least make them aware of the fact that there is recruiting being done.
Yeah.
When does it get decided how many people are on the committee?
Well, that's our next issue, right? And I thought about it, and I don't really want a committee of 30. My thinking is we should have 2. I thought, since there's chapters, not go to individual committees.
I like that idea.
And the reason I think that is when we're considering the candidates, we consider the chapters and say, okay, well, this person has some area of expertise in 2 chapters, so that might be why it's but we widen that pool of candidates, whereas if we just say, five candidates. As far as advertising goes, I'd like to have Kristen work with Sela to put a blast out to every committee member.
Can you get them in someplace like the Community Advocate also? And I'd like to see if we can get it out
Do
to,
a press release.
yeah, press release on this. I'd like to see it out, and also talk to people, talk to Sustainable Westborough, for example, tell them we're looking for members. I would, notify the Civic Club, I would notify Rotary, other, things like that in town that maybe send them specifically a copy, or whoever the president is of those.
Well, if you remember, we had a list of all those organizations when we did the master plan.
Right.
We could go back to that list and just send, please distribute to your membership. Parents, we could ask. I think if we, to be honest with that, I have a lot of confidence in Kristen. I think we just
Get it out.
get it out there. Feel pretty good. Gonna probably think of ways to get it out there that we haven't.
But I'd love to see an article in the newspaper about a community advocate, just because I think that, people read it either online or, get the newspaper, and people do read that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it reaches a different group.
And I think the senior newsletter is important,
Yeah,
too.
it's another possibility.
But I think we could probably just, put that charge on, especially on Kristen, to, we're going to meet again a couple of times before that. Something's been missed, we can bring it up at that time.
What about putting a deadline of August 15th, and we can see what we have at that point, and if necessary, extend it to September 1st.
I'd like that. I'd like to get this moving. I feel like it's taken us a while to get it moving.
So your proposed composition, you mentioned 2 planning board members, 1 select board member, and the town manager, and then the rest at large? Okay. So I'm going to suggest that you add the DPW director or his designee, only because it's likely that you're going to have capital projects, and because of the studies that are being done on infrastructure right now at the DPW, I think they need to have a voice at the table.
A vote or ask them to attend meetings?
That's up to you, but I think they need to be in the room, whether it's a vote or just their designee as an advisor, they should attend the meetings.
I do it as an advisory. I mean, I'd like to see this committee really heavily weighted with town citizens. Quite frankly, to me, that's the important thing.
There's a lot of department heads I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see the head of economic. Health, talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
Encouraging restaurants. Again, there may be department heads that get invited to certain meetings that are focused. I definitely see your point, Jim, that I don't know that we need the.
So the reason that I attach importance to that and single it out is because you're likely to have some capital recommendations. And Public Works is the most capital-intensive department that we have, and they're probably going to be the department that executes a lot of these things. So I just...
But my concern is that might put somebody's nose out of joint that, maybe felt, well, why is it just the DPW? Why isn't, my department?
I understand that.
Just as
but
important.
DPW was pointed out by Donnie's other towns as that they had a seat at the table, even when other departments didn't. But I'm bringing it up because I know we're doing a lot of work right now with the town's infrastructure ability to support future development. So,
Well, could we ask them to be an advisory member and
sure. I just don't want it to be overlooked. I want it to be essential.
Comfortable and leave our 13 as we've talked about, and then
Well, I think
just
certainly
put
the
them
town
in.
planner is going to be an advisory member.
Yeah,
DPW director
Right.
would be an advisor.
right.
Town manager going to be a voting member or an advisory
I
member?
think we have the town manager be a voting member.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
That would be the only, in my opinion, that's the only.
Right.
They represent the administration. I think in some of these, I'm not sure, but do we want to ask?
They could be an advisory member.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are people we can add as advisory, but I'd like to keep the 13 we've talked about, which seems to be a workable number. And also, it doesn't put, my other concern is that our department heads have so much to do that it's very difficult for them to, find themselves, if they had to find themselves where they had to be at 2 other meetings a month and so forth. It's just too much to ask, and I'd rather have them come when we really needed them. And they could also sit at the table when something, when they need something specific, and it would give the committee the opportunity to say, for example, DPW, tonight we're looking at setting up a subcommittee which is going to be dealing with X, and could you come and join us so that we have some idea about what might be the things that you're looking for? Do it that way.
Yeah, so why don't we say that the DPW, the school department, and
You got economic development,
the head of
probably.
economic development will all be, or their designee. So somebody in one of those departments that could represent. I
In the
think we
planning
could talk
department,
about this
yeah.
makeup for hours if we
Right.
want. But I'm personally kind of impatient, and I want to get out to the town. I don't think there's any one right for, you know. Donnie didn't even give us one recommendation.
Well, that's only fair. As a consultant, that's what you'd always do.
Yeah, he did. He gave us 3. He said the town of Northborough has 13 committee members, a mix of representatives from the select board, planning board, and various committees, along with general members of the public. Maynard has 12 committee members, no members of its select board or planning board, but has the assistant town manager and the town planner on the implementation committee. Arlington is comprised of multiple subcommittees of a wide variety of membership, including the town manager and town staff on subcommittees. So that's really very different, each of those 3 towns.
So my feeling on the 13 is, let's just see how many qualified people come out, and say if there's 17, I don't think we should turn people down because the amount of work that needs to be done in this project. I know 30 seems like too many, but if we have 17 qualified people, I don't think we prevent those 4 people from helping out.
Well, and that's fine. I think we can revise the numbers. For the purpose of publishing it, we should go with, you know, the 9 at-large members. All for at-large.
Yeah, I would just leave it open. I don't think we need to put a number in.
Specify the makeup of
Yeah.
the committee, or we just call for members now.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, let's just get as many people as possible.
I do think you should recruit. I mean, you know who was on the advisory committee. If you know someone that you think should follow through with the implementation, you should reach out to them.
Right.
I
That's,
don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I'm calling Jim Ball tomorrow, but, you know, there's a lot of people that were on that master plan committee, but, you know, there's a lot of good people in this town. We saw last week a couple of really good candidates that weren't on the master plan committee. So I just think it's important to get, you know, not go in there with a expectation for who's going to try and encourage some new process.
and we have a very diverse community, so hopefully we can get people from other persuasions and other other ethnicities that we have in this town, because I think sometimes they've been marginalized, and I think it's important to see what we can do to get representation from all facets in our community.
I would like the committee to be as diverse as our population. And I'd like to have on this board, like 80% men is maybe not representative of our population.
Of the population?
So, you know, but we can't control who's going to apply.
Right, exactly.
So, but again, I think, let's get out there, get the word out. Reach out to as many organizations as we can. Feel free to do that yourself, even if Kristen does it as well, or Jim does it as well. I'd rather have them contacted twice than not contacted. Let's start spreading the word that, you know, by August. Well, let's look at the calendar though, because when's our meeting? When are our meetings in August?
I think we have 3.
We have 3 in the month of August.
Yeah, when do we
The
have?
first one is the 9th.
Do we have 2 more this month or just 1?
There's one more this
one
month,
more
it's the
this
19th.
We moved August 2nd to August 9th, right?
Yep, the 9th, the 23rd, and the 30th.
Okay, so why don't we,
9th, the 9th, the what?
23rd.
3rd and the 30th.
so why don't we say by Thursday, the 18th? You know, letters of interest will be due. That will give us, and to review them, or is that enough time for you to get them out to us, Jim and Kristen, if there's a lot of them?
We're talking August 18th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when is the notice going to be drafted and final to actually distribute?
Yesterday.
Sorry?
Yesterday.
Oh, it's done?
No, but it should be done right away.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking if we're going to basically give people a month, because it's July 5th already,
Yeah.
and if we're going to try and meet about it August 23rd, I mean, you get a little bit more than a month, but
I say we just go to August 30th and then, or,
Well, here's what I think. I think if we give people till August, like 17th, Wednesday, August 17th, that's quite a bit more than a month. That gives Jim and Kristen a chance to get it out to us by the 18th. 3rd, and make a decision about whether we want to appoint people, how many we want to appoint, or if we want to extend the deadline and continue.
Maybe the thing to do is we could put the date of that, and let's see when we, let's keep an eye on this, and if we see we're not getting any applications, we could, I'd hate to go to the end and say, you know, we need to extend this another 2 weeks, which gives the impression that we didn't get anybody applying. So if we maybe, by the end of July, we have a better idea about how many applications we have, we could say then in August, we could say, you know, we've decided to extend this till the end of August or something. So
August 9th, we could make that decision.
yeah, because as I said, I hate it when you see something that says, well, we've reopened this or we've kept it open longer, which usually means to me they didn't have anybody who was interested. And we don't want to give that impression.
Right. I know, I'm the optimist that you get a lot of interest, so.
so say if we do have a lot of interest, say we have 25 people and you want to get down to 13, are we going to do presentations or just a resume, or how does that work?
It's a good question. I mean, I think we would have to interview candidates.
Yeah, because it has to be fair.
Yeah.
It would have to be something like what John just went through.
Right. So I think that might take us the 23rd and the 30th. We might have to, depending on how many candidates we might have.
Does it have to be a public interview?
So I think we should target the 23rd and the 30th to do those interviews. All done on the 23rd, depending on how many there are. That would give people a chance.
Jim, could you perhaps ask Donnie, I'm curious as to whether they interviewed all the candidates that were interested or whether they did it just through the resumes.
Oh, in the other towns?
Yeah, the other towns. I'd be kind of interested to know what the procedure was in the other towns, because I think maybe, you know, we could do by resumes or people letters of interest, and maybe winnow down a first round and then do some interviewing. I mean, you know, if we get 30 people, I hate to, it probably would not be worthwhile to interview all 30 people. So that's why I was thinking, and I wondered whether we could, you know, take a look at the resumes or the requirements. I mean, you know, some people are just kind of, it's a throwaway, and
Yeah.
so that I don't want to put the
I feel like
board
in
through a
order
lot
to
of.
be fair, if we're going to give one person an interview, we should give them all an interview under the effort of submitting their letter. I know it's time consuming. That list of questions like we did last week. I hate to just toss somebody's letter of interest out and say.
So you could have letters of interest and give them 2 questions. Let them know what the questions are going to be, something like, why are you interested in being part of the master plan process, and what skills do you bring to the process? So just 2 really specific questions, and let them all answer the questions, and don't ask anything else of them. Then just move to the next person, just move to the next person. And we take notes on them.
Could we just have it written with their application? Just 2 questions
yeah.
with application, and then we can just
You'd filter it that way.
I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. You know, just have a written response.
Well, we could put it in the request, say, why are you interested in the master plan? So I wrote this, so Donnie gave us that paragraph, we include that. And then we say, it is anticipated that the committee will meet twice a month for the first quarter, and then evaluate its meeting schedule going forward. If you are a resident of Westborough and want to be involved, please send a letter of interest to the Office of the Planning Board by August, I think you said 18th, whatever date, I'll put the date in. But then you could say, please include why you are interested in the master plan implementation and what skills or talents you would bring to the effort.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
I like that idea.
No, I think that's good, and that might forestall the need for interviews.
I definitely want to know, oh, sorry, I want to know what aspect of the master plan everyone's kind of focused on or interested. There's got to be, I'm not saying that you're limited to one aspect of it, but if we could actually find out, all right,
We could ask a third question and say, is there a particular chapter of the master
Do you
plan
have
that
particular
you
interest?
focus your efforts?
yeah, and then we can that's kind of will help us
That's a
figure
good
out the
idea,
picture.
Peter. Yeah.
Because we do want to.
So if you get 10 people that are interested in housing, then we can say, well,
But we don't want 90% of the committee to be interested in one focus and not have anybody interested in culture.
Yeah.
Or, land use or.
So, not to be nitpicky, but the second question of like or maybe it was the first, what skills do you bring? I don't know if we generalize it and say, why should we choose you? Because that's kind of a broad, give me your skills, why.
that's a nice, that's another better idea, because some people don't have skills.
Right.
They just have interests.
Right.
And so
why
that,
should we choose you is about.
yeah.
I like that.
All right. And then is there a particular chapter or?
So do you still want the skills or talents to be listed?
No, I like John's,
I missed it, John.
It's just basically, why should we choose you?
Okay.
Because that gives them the opportunity to talk about their skills, but also if there's somebody who doesn't have the skills.
Yeah.
But is very interested and wants to get involved or has been involved in other.
Right. I mean, if you're a mother that's been home with small kids,
and then I think if we ask the third question, what chapter in the master plan would you like to focus?
How about just simply, what is your area of interest?
Area of interest, that's fine.
well, I would reference the master plan because hopefully people, a lot of people have not read the master plan. So consequently, this may be one way to have people actually look at the master plan. And so I think it's important that they focus on, I think, area of interest is that was set forth in the master plan. I think that is important to do it that way, just so that people actually, who may not have looked at the master plan.
I think by implication, asking what is your area of interest, if somebody gives us an area of interest that has nothing to do with the master plan, then they don't, then maybe they're not the right person for this committee.
Well, you could just say, what is your area of interest in the 2021 master plan?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Related to the components, how about that?
Yeah, that's
good.
fine.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's,
Somebody responds with my area of interest is ballet, then we're not going to select.
And can you put a word?
That's culture. That's culture, Mark.
It is, my dog is.
I don't like the color of the police cars in town. I mean,
Let's not bring that
That
up.
point was made at town meeting.
Multiple times.
so, as I said, I want people to look more
point was
broadly
made.
than.
And then can you put a word max on each of those questions? Because I don't want to be reading like essays for each one. I want,
Just say, keep your answers to one page.
yeah, that
Yeah.
works.
Good idea.
I don't need to read a book for each one of these people.
You don't want the instructions to be so long that people don't read it and don't respond.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
Please keep your response brief.
And if some people go on for 3 pages, we will double think about it. That's the sort of person that may not add, may not be good at working with other people in a committee. There's always a possibility, so.
So as the planning board, do we decide together, or is it the two representatives from the planning board?
We'll decide that's who goes on. Real discretion, the select board will pick their own.
Okay.
Well, I think with the select board, maybe we ask for one and an alternate, because I think it's important that we have,
Select board member attending meetings.
yeah, so I would ask for an alternate on that.
And to be honest, select board member from.
What's the date you want to have the responses by?
I think August 17th, that's a Wednesday. That gives you a day to collate them and get them out to us by the 18th, and that gives us.
Okay.
We typically have a deadline, a Thursday before a meeting.
August 17th.
Feel like that's enough time, or should we push that up
August
so we have more
16th.
time to read?
No, it's fine with me, yeah.
Okay. So August 17th. Third, interviews.
I think the letters are a way to filter it down and say if you get so many candidates, and then maybe you have X amount there, maybe interested in one part of the master plan, then I think at that point, you might want to do an interview, but
I think you can leave it open at this point, and we can make the decision depending on what we get. There may be people that we feel we should call in and talk to, and if we have 2 or 3 candidates that are interested in the exact same field, then we may want to figure out a way to winnow those down. So I think we can leave that open at this point.
All right, so the goal would be to have that committee named.
I would say the 30th.
End of the month.
30th.
All right.
give us a meeting in between.
What are our meetings in September? Did we cover the 6th, the day after Labor Day? You remember?
I will be out of town.
That's right.
I'll be on vacation that
All
week.
right, so we tentatively have a meeting on the 6th. Everything done in.
Yeah, that sixth meeting, I will have an issue. Just I have family
Commitment.
fundraiser,
Okay, well, let's,
so we'll figure that out.
yeah, may have a couple of long meetings in August then.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, so I feel good about that. I feel like we made some progress on the. Do you have any other business?
Not at this time. Let me ask John a question. John, did you receive anything from THCD about housing choice? I did not at the end of the month. Yeah. So they were supposed to promulgate their regulations regarding housing choice by June 30th, and I've not received anything. So I'm just making sure that no one else has as well.
All right. All right, thank you, Jim. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That is 5-0.
Right.
So do we know out of the 5 of us who wants to be on that committee?
Do we know?
Or do you want to be on it? Is that something?
I do want to be on it, but I don't want to monopolize all these committees. I mean,
No, I'm just trying to figure out.
I mean,